changes would you like to see implemented related to Louisiana's ethics laws and enforcement system? And how would your administration improve the state's image for corruption? Actually, I think I asked this question to Mr. Bitter.
Well, Robert, unfortunately, we have a long history of corruption and cronyism, and we have a continuing reality. Good news is, to a much lesser extent than in the past, but it continues. So we absolutely need to work on that, and I will have a zero-tolerance policy for corruption and cronyism. In many ways, our ethics laws are pretty sound and pretty strong on paper. The issue is enforcement. Give you a perfect example. There was a lot of reporting not too long ago about double dipping. Legislators, for instance, getting compensated for certain expenses twice, once on the official side, once on the campaign side. Now that's prohibited. The question is enforcement. And so we need stronger enforcement of the ethics administration. And I would look specifically at that to give them the resources they need for much more proactive auditing than they do now. And I would do that in the context of our budget issues. One simple idea is to put a fee on every significant campaign finance filing. If that sort of user fee were put on a filing, say $100 for any significant filing, significant campaign, that could immediately give the administration of ethics a lot more auditing capability. In addition, I think we need to look at other prohibitions. Secretary of a big department cannot do anything involving his or her department for 2 years after they leave the state government. However, the undersecretary, right under the secretary, can do all sorts of things the day after he or she leaves. I think that 2-year ban needs to be broadened for high-ranking officials besides simply the secretary of the agency. So those are the sorts of reforms I would focus on. One more real-world example. We had the Bruce Greenstein situation where a secretary of DHH was directly involved in a contract negotiation involving his former employer. We need to have mandatory recusal for those situations so those abuses never happen again.
All right, Mr. Angel.
Thank you. Well, we're certainly proud of a lot of things in our unique state. Unfortunately, our political history is stained with a culture of corruption. That national image, in my mind, has led to a variety of business who have fled Louisiana for not wanting to comply with a pay-to-play scheme, taking their investments and jobs elsewhere. In the last decade, no doubt we've made significant improvements in ethics, and PAR has been on the front lines providing the suggestions that the legislature has, in fact, taken up on. Today, Louisiana is ranked 15th in that area. More work can be done. As your governor, I won't allow Louisiana to backslide into those dark days of our state's history, but rather move forward. Today, I have 3 proposals I would offer. First, when we use private contractors, we must avoid the unintended consequences and ensure the public has a right to know. To achieve that goal, I would support legislation to clearly define, quote, unquote, a governmental function when performed by a private contractor. This clarification would ensure that all private companies working with governments are subject to our open records laws and our code of ethics. We should never allow a quote-unquote governmental function to be provided or conducted by a private contractor to be an ethical loophole. Second, I would support providing more resources to help the Board of Ethics to make their processes more efficient. We must lessen the amount of time between when a complaint is filed and when action is taken to demonstrate to the public that in these matters we are serious and we want to deal with them in a swift way. Third and finally, I would seek to strengthen Louisiana's anti-corruption image by calling on the legislative auditor, the Board of Ethics, and the Attorney General to put together and collaborate on an annual report regarding our fight against public corruption. By shining a light and evaluating our efforts to combat corruption each year, we can ensure its specter never haunts our state again. This annual report will reaffirm our position that we have a zero tolerance for corruption in our state. And although we've come a long way, more can be done. I look forward to working with you on those important issues that build public confidence in state government.
How do you improve the state's image for corruption? You elect people with a pattern of behavior and a reputation for doing the right thing for the right reasons. People whose actions are going to make us proud and not become the feedstock for late-night television jokes. People whose actions we're going to look at and say they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. I was filing ethics bills back in the 90s and early 2000s before ethics reform was cool. I can remember the chairman of the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee asking me if I would like to have my bills killed all at once or individually, one at a time. And I said, Mr. Chairman, take them one at a time. And a lot of those innovations at the time are now accepted practice in Louisiana's ethics laws. We have come a very long way, but we still have room to go, as always is the case. More timely decisions is the most important thing I would point out to. Excuse me, that's a microphone, not me. Complaints that are filed, it takes too long for an adjudication. We did the right thing by separating adjudication from prosecution. That was an inherent conflict, and it's been fixed. But we've got to get quicker decisions, particularly on major issues. They can churn out quick decisions on little guys who were a day late in filing a report and are fined some relatively minor amount. We need to focus on big, important things, abuses of campaign finance laws, for example. As long as we have campaign finance laws, that we do right now, but looking at what the courts are saying, we may not have campaign finance limitations for very long in this country the way the court decisions are going. But we have them now, and we have prohibitions on super PACs coordinating with individual candidates. You can't control what they do, and we don't have a very good definition of that, and the Ethics Board needs to weigh in and make sure that that kind of abuse does not happen. Because it should not be the person who has the most money is going to be the person who's the best guy to do the job. And we need to make sure that our ethics provisions prevent any abuse in this area so long as we have these campaign finance laws.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards.
Thanks, Robert. Ethics are important to me as they are to you, and I know that that's been one of the things that PAR has concerned itself with diligently over the years. At West Point, the cadets elected me to be the enforcer of the honor code. A cadet would not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. It was my job to enforce that code for the entire Corps of Cadets. I believe that ethics laws serve a similar purpose with respect to government, to make sure that we don't have public servants who are lying and cheating. So I will make this a top priority as your next governor. One of the specific things with respect to campaign finance that I think we need to take a look at is this practice of double dipping, where we have taxpayer-funded per diems, for example, that are paying for certain things for public servants to do, and then public servants are using campaign finance dollars to reimburse those same expenditures, so that they're actually pocketing the per diem. I think that's wrong. I think we need to take a look at it and make sure that that does not continue. I also want to make sure that all campaign finance with respect to both the receipts and expenditures are fully disclosed. Sunlight is the absolute best disinfectant, and the public has a right to know, and they will in large part make their own determinations about the appropriateness, but they can't do that if there's not complete reporting. Also, with respect to the ethics laws, I think we need to work to clarify the rules, because there's different language used in different parts, and it does cause some inability for uniformity. And with respect to that, I believe we also ought to look at giving the Ethics Adjudicatory Board the limited right of appeal with respect to questions of law. The facts in every case are unique. The law is not. The law ought to be applied and interpreted uniformly. I think a limited right of appeal to the First Circuit on questions of law would be in order and move us a long way in that direction.